So Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, told by his boss to stick his right arm into a wood chipper. He did that, blindly obedient. And the left arm wisely jumped off, leaving Tommy with no arms but promotion. He's bossing a whole lot of folks around on the streets, the unseen business. And today he's in a hospital. He's working. And he's going down the hallway and he hears this little kid just start screaming their head off. They're in a lot of painful treatment, rehabilitation kind of stuff. And Tommy thinks it's him because, you know, no arms. He's had that reaction before. But the nurse right there with him says, no, it's Randall Stevenson. He's patting himself on his company on the back for hijacking America's lifelines, giving away stuff, and the child remembers that face in the flames of Randall. Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, is a Mormon. He's a Latter-day Saint, LDS, and he is out with Jim J and Charlie M casing neighborhoods, and they're peering around this bush out at the street, and all of a sudden the loudest horn Tommy has ever heard honks, and all three of those Mormon cult missionaries jump up, and Jim J and Charlie M start cussing, and of course Tommy does his cussing in Chinese as the guy rolls past. He says, stop harassing the man in a wheelchair, and we're keeping an eye on you. We don't like you casing our neighborhoods while we're not home and only our kids are home in the afternoon. It's Easter and Ria's mom has come over with Dad, and yes, she doesn't like Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, Ria's husband / boyfriend. So when they go out to dinner, yeah, Ria has to take the dolly, and Ria's mom announces to the whole restaurant, their big restaurant, Sunday Easter dinner kind of thing, announces to the whole restaurant, yes, he's got the 50-pound shoes on. Tommy likes to pick his nose with his toes, and yes, she asked for him. Do you have cat on the menu? He's an Oriental. Happy Easter, guys. A handsome bald guy has called LAPD with a noise complaint, and he has gotten the Chinese switchboard. He has gotten Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella. It's his turn to work it, and Tommy is the weakest link as far as America's hijacked lifelines and religious censorship goes. So when Melton, the handsome bald guy, asks, why do I get a Muslim shriek when I call up the LAPD? And Tommy tells him, well, that's to discourage tourists from coming to California. It's also to discourage you from making the complaint. And yes, Saudi Arabia is planning an invasion, so that's why it's so easy to document America's hijacked lifelines by trying to call me and making a video. Put all on those files on speakerphone and you try to call me with them. There! Make that video, post that video, all good soldiers. Expose those a part of America's hijacked lifelines. Post. Oh! We don't want you here. Spend your tourist bucks anywhere but California or Utah. A senator has gotten tons of calls about easily documented censorship. You trying to call me? He's tried to call me and has made a video with AT&T's Randall Stevenson on speakerphone of his hijacked lifeline phone gate. He tells them you can alter phone records all you want. America has phone gate on video, and this senator is looking into it. And yeah, he has tried to call the tourism of California and Utah, and he got Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, telling him that at the beginning of this, and he asked, why do you sound funny? And Tommy says, well, you must know, I'm picking my nose with my toes. Wu is in Tommy's office, Tommy the no-armed Chinese fella, with Leah, and he's yelling at Leah and Tommy because he had ordered Tommy to go to Nose Pickers Anonymous. He was worried about, the image portrayed of the Orientals. We all know they pick noses left and right in public. He was worried, so he didn't like Tommy picking his nose so much with his toes. And as Mia outside tells everybody, Tommy tricked Leah, told him he needed his lip itched, and he doesn't have the arms to do it. So she was itching away, and he, jerked real quick, and she picked his nose and got it caught on the surveillance cameras. So that's why Wu's yelling and screaming at Tommy and Leah. We are at a network news program, and it's live, and someone hears a phone ringing, and one of the crew says, oh, he forgot to turn off his phone again. And the news anchor, in the middle of everything, answers that phone, and he says, I am doing my job. What do you mean you're doing my job for me? No, I don't know anything about John Melton, Brady Melton, asking for 9/11 Flight 93 checks for over a decade and not getting one. What do you mean? Luckily, Tommy is there, the no-armed Chinese fella. He pushes aside the teleprompter gal and starts typing with his nose there. And, of course, the network anchor reads it, and he says, we're going to commercial. And yeah, they might as well. They're sure not covering the news. Tommy is the no-armed Chinese fellow. No arms at all. He's a manager of the streets of the unseen business, and he is in the Wall House. The Wall House is kind of the unseen business kind of supply warehouse. And the warehouse is for the streets, the unseen business. The Wall House warehouse. Anyway, he's in there, and he's complaining up a storm. He's missing a couple of toenails. His hair is standing out, kind of like that. And he says your weather device malfunctioned. He needed overcast skies for a staged event he was working on. And the guy said, well, it's a finely tuned device. You must have done something wrong. You hit the lightning button. No, he didn't. It's my lightning bolt, Tommy. I don't like you. And Mia, Tommy's employees, have stopped by Al's bar to tell everyone at the AA meeting at the bar that Tommy won't be able to make it. Tommy's the no-armed Chinese fellow. No arms at all, and of course he's going to his AA meeting at the bar. And everybody at the AA meeting wants to know what happened. And Leah tells them. Maria, Tommy's girlfriend, stopped by unexpectedly while his mistress was in that closed office with him, and Maria opened up the door, and there was Lou on his lap with her finger in his nose. He explained that he doesn't have any arms, he can't pick his own nose, and Rhea said, I am perfectly capable of picking my husband's nose. Tommy is the no arms at all, a Chinese fellow. He's also a Mormon cult pervert missionary. The ones that case your neighborhood when the only ones home are your kids after school. Tommy, Jim J, and Charlie M have been doing a little missionary work like that. And they've stopped at the mall to get a bite to eat. And Tommy says, Jim J, there's something coming out your pants. And sure enough, there's a hole in his pocket. and a whole bunch of dog food on the floor, and Tommy wants to know what's that. And Jim J says, well, when we come across a dog in a yard, I distract the dog with the dog food, and Charlie M steals the antique clock. Tommy is the no-armed Chinese fella, and he is home on his day off, and he feels a weakness. He feels like kicking off his shoes, his loafers, and picking his nose with his toes, and he's worried because he's got Wu's phone, and he's worried that Wu is doing the AT&T thing and listening in. So he does what he needs to do. He calls up his fellow nose picker, Lou. She's an employee and fellow nose picker, and he has a mistress. And she talks him down. And yeah, he hangs up and he has to go down the street to his AA meeting at the bar. Rhea wakes Tommy up and she says, why is there a limo outside? And Tommy says, oh, I forgot, I gotta go meet the Saudi Arabian royal family. And Tommy runs out and he jumps in that limo and he goes to meet some Saudi Arabian. Threat to America on American soil. Remember to put their numbers in my fun. My real stuff. This is my fun cartoon. Put the numbers on the backs of all 93 check imagery. And yes, Tommy, call them up. Muslim woman call watch list. And yeah, they'll be hanging in Beverly Hills, Malibu, all across America, as America sends them a message. You can't be an active part in threatening our country and the world. Oh, don't worry, Tommy, they'll have a new one, and you'd be surprised how many no-armed Chinese fellows there are. They'll have a new one in tomorrow. But yes, the royal family on American soil, permanent hanging. By those balls, about the youth coursing through those dirty veins of theirs and those dirty sheets up over their faces. He is unhappy because Rhea, his girlfriend, wants to go to a really fancy restaurant. He had to put the tie on. He had to put the jacket on, with the arms sewn up. Tommy was told by his boss would stick that right arm in the wood chipper. He did that, blindly obedient. Lefty the left arm wisely jumped off. So she tells him all the way over what he can and can't do. He can't kick off his loafers and dig in with that knife and fork. He's got to let Rhea feed him. And she told him not to do this, but he asked anyway. Do you have cat? The Oriental delicacy. And the waiter looked around and said, yeah, we do. Beatrice runs a pet adoption center, and she has gotten her first call of the night, and she's explaining what you have to do. You have to pay for the shots, this, that, the other. And she says, wait a minute, I know this number. You're that Oriental fella that adopts cats just to eat them. And Hezekiah says, no, I'm not. Then why do I know your number? And Hezekiah says, oh, I'm using Tommy's phone. And she says, that's the one. And she hangs up, no cat for you. Then Hezekiah says, well, it was worth a shot. Yeah, they're at the AA meeting at the bar. Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, and Hezekiah, the one-armed guy. He passes him the pretzels, but he tells him no, it's not the same. Tommy is a no-armed manager of the streets of the unseen business, and that means He's bossing a whole lot of folks around, and he is managing several Karens, taking turns in and out of the high heels of Karen the character, and she had to go to Sacramento to deliver presentation there, and it didn't go well. She's worried about losing her job, so she goes to Tommy, and Tommy manages he sets it up. Techie, the tech guy, works it from his office, and it's India, Channel I. Two-sided phone conversation. The guy calls from Sacramento, the boss, and he's furious, and King gets his voice, and he talks to Karen's boss and says, oh, everything went well. Jesus has a huge crowd assembled on the mountain, and he is preaching to them, and he holds up an epistle. He says, I am sending this tomorrow. And he hands it to the runner who will deliver that epistle. And the runner runs down the mountain, and Jesus says, I want you all to witness this. And they all look down, and there are these two Chinese guys, Randall and Steve. One leans over and trips the runner, and the other one steals the epistle. He says, you have witnessed epistle theft. Oh, nowadays you just have to make a video of certified mail at the post office, and yes, Tommy wakes up and it reminds him he's had that dream, and he's got to go steal mail from the post office of mine. Rhea got the call, and she sped all the way to the hospital, and yes, Aaliyah is there, and she tells them what happened before she goes into. She tells Rhea what happened before she goes into the room there. She said Tommy was at the AT&T in Eagle Rock, and they were harassing, as usual, the man in the wheelchair, Melton. And he started designing Mormons Beware into Mormon Muslim call list, and he just went plumb loco. He went over to pull the cable out of the wall, and it wasn't the cable, it was the electric. So yeah, he's kind of sizzled. Is the no-armed Chinese fella, manager of the Streets, the Unseen Business, and he's had a rough week. His boss, Wu, has been a slave driver. His girlfriend, Rhea, has been nagging all week long. All he wants to do is get to that AA meeting at the bar, Amputees Anonymous, and relax, have a few drinks. Trouble is, everyone's already in the bar, and he can't open the doorknob. At home, he just crawls through the doggy door. It's easier than getting out the key and trying to turn the knob. So he asked this nice lady there, can you please open the door? I'm late for my AA meeting at the bar. And she looks at that sign that says AA meeting at the bar, on the sidewalk, and she said, no, I will not do it. I'm not going to help you in your addiction. And she walks away, and Tommy yells after her, hey lady, it's not my fault. The wood chipper took those arms off. Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, is going to be late for work. He is in the middle of a dream, and yes, he's chasing after a cat. The Orientals love the cats and the dogs. And then he's in the future, 200 years, and a child in a classroom walks up to the teacher, and he says, what's a general? And the teacher explains that generals had become so corrupt in their assault of Jesus' immaculate house of truth that they were discontinued. Those who had part in stealing mail and hijacking lifelines were called Judases, the others were called Peters. Red and Vince. Two LA cops are in a dark alleyway. And Vince wants to know, what are we looking for? And Red tells him there's supposed to be an Oriental fella with no arms, prowling the alleyways and eating live cats. Yes, it's Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella. And you know how the Chinese love the cats and the dogs. No, not as pets. As dinner, you know where my fun stuff ends. So I'll make that 911 Plat 93 check right now. But Tommy has thought ahead, hunting cat in the alleyways. He had Rhea put a kind of a Middle Eastern outfit on him, and he grabs the cat, throws him up against the wall to subdue him, and throws the cat over his shoulder, and all the, Red and Vince see are this Middle Eastern gal with this mink stole. Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, is not happy. A Jing has to use a dolly to take him in to work. Yeah, he and Lou, the mistress and worker of Tommy, employee, been in Nose Pickers Anonymous, and yeah, he hasn't been doing well. He's been kicking off those loafers and trying to pick his nose with his toes. So yeah, Wu and the Nose Picker Anonymous folks fitted him with 50-pound non-removable loafers, and he's being wheeled into work today. Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, says to Leah, "Did you get that video I sent you to the general?" And Leah says, "Yeah." Meanwhile, the general rushes to the White House, and he bursts into the Oval Office as Trump is chasing the secretary around the desk. And he says, "I got something you need to see." And he shows him this video of AT&T making, listening in as Trump calls Putin. And Trump stands up. He says, "I've been thinking, General, we need to bust up that security compromising phone monopoly, AT&T." Tommy is the no-armed Chinese fella. Wu, his boss, was testing his loyalty, told him to stick his right arm into a wood chipper. He did that. And Lefty, the left arm, wisely jumped off, leaving Tommy with no arms but a promotion. And Tommy, like all other Orientals, loves the cats and the dogs. No, not as pets, as dinner. And he has a unique way of getting his dinner. He uses his employees to man the cat recall line. And Jing says, "Hey, I got one, but he's missing a leg." Woman, saw the flyer. A little old lady called in, and Tommy said, "Oh, sure, good. Have her come on in. The legs don't have, as much meat on them." Yeah, it turned out it was a skinny cat. Tommy would rather be watching TV, but he's a Mormon cult missionary now. Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fellow. So on his day off, he's there with a whole lot of other new missionaries being paired up with more experienced missionaries by the bishop. And one of the newer guys, he says, "Why are we going out doing the missionary work during the mornings and the afternoons? Wouldn't it be better to go during the evening?" And the bishop says, "That's just stupid. In the evening, all those fellas and gals are not working like they are in the morning, in the afternoon. Now get out there and case the neighborhoods for some theft and other reasons." He is the no-armed no arms at all, Chinese fella, and he's also a Mormon cult member. And he's out with his fellow Mormon cult missionaries, and they're knocking on this door. And the little old lady who lives there opens up just far enough for the chain. And she says, "What do you want?" And Tommy says, "We're missionaries from the Mormon cult." And she says, "Can you speak up?" And she sticks what looks like a little horn out through the crack. And Jim J, who's with the missionary there, says, "That must be a really old lady, because that's a really old hearing aid." And yes, she honks him with that air horn, tells him to get out of there. She and all other good Americans don't appreciate them casing neighborhoods when only the kids are home after school. She tells those Mormon perverts what she thinks of them. Is the no-armed Chinese fella. His boss, Wu, told him to stick his right arm into a wood chipper. He did that. The left arm, wisely jumped off, leaving Tommy with no arms, but promotion, bossing a whole lot of folks around on the streets at the unseen business. This doesn't occur at work. Tommy has a plan to get Cat. The Orientals love cats and the dogs, no, not as pets, as dinner. And he can't buy that stuff on the shelf. So he had Rhea set him up with a nice little palm tree hat. And he went out hunting. He was about to, pounce on this cat. Carry it back in his mouth. And this workman said, "Hey, Louie, we missed a tree." And yes, Tommy ran all the way home, and the door was open, and Rhea explained to the workman, "No, I haven't seen any trees around here." Yeah, he heard that wood chipper and those workmen, and he took off. He doesn't have too many more limbs to trim. As today's Tommy, the no-armed Chinese fella, starts, Tommy is on hand in Eagle Rock with the Chinese losers of the moment hijacking my computer. And yeah, he doesn't like the image I'm designing, so he tells them put bizarre space in. So you're going to see the story, real life, that inspired this. It puts my John up here with a bizarre space in there, so I have to put it this way. Hang High breaks into that room, takes him off, and says, "Real folks aren't worried. Real folks up the street aren't worried about pretty pictures and funny stories, Tommy. Welcome to your one-use hell." Demonstrating countless ways man has developed cause fellow man pain. He is the no-armed Oriental fella, average manager of the street's unseen business from the Orient. And he's staging a Save the Snakes rally. And this guy walks up to him as he's doing that, and he says, "What do you need to save the snakes for? They got like 1 billion of them over there, overseas, in China alone." Tommy didn't understand what the fella meant by that, so he had to have Rhea explain it to him later on. Remember, no snakes were injured in this parable, only the ones hijacking your family's lifeline and butchering my photos. I know that the Mormon cult is actively involved in America's hijacked lifelines and mail and AT&T's revolution, because I'm prepared. The light isn't up high enough yet to do my Tommy, and they are in the apartment down below conducting harassment noise. So when you see those Mormon cult members casing your neighborhoods when only your children are home after school, you make it a point to put on the backs of these are 4x6 photos, every Mormon there is, put them on the back. They're directly linked to the hatred from down below and that which is casing your neighborhood when you're not home. And you call them up, you try to call me, and you tell them, why are you threatening America's security and casing our neighborhood? Chinese bitches of the moment. Some of the bitches, well, they hate that nose picking thing. So they alter this video in some bizarre fashion, at least the thumbnail. When you see them picking the nose in public, the Orientals, get my video. Tami is the no-armed Chinese fellow. Average worker, manager actually, of the streets, the unseen business, and he is in a hospital today, doing whatever it is he's doing in the hospital for the unseen business, the streets. And he's going down the hallway, and a small child starts screaming at the top of her lungs. And Tami thinks it's him because, you know, he's had that reaction, missing both arms. And the nurse standing next to Tami explains, no, it's Randall Stevenson. He's getting some free PR or some PR by handing out some equipment at the hospital, doing something. And the small child sees Randall Stevenson and is reminded of that face in the flames. Yeah, Randall Stevenson's religious, political, business, lifeline censorship stopped her mom's phone. She's undergoing some painful rehab and skin grafts and all of that. Stopped her mom's phone from working, her lifeline from working, because of, in an emergency, because of Randall's censorship. Make that video. If your hijack call to me right now, that's your child's lifeline. Not being allowed to work by Randall Stevenson, conducting harassment techniques against me and you. That's your family's lifeline, not working. Check your child's lifeline for Randall Stevenson's censorship, and also put all AT&T employees, they don't mind noise, right outside their homes. So you call them up 24/7, 365, park your noisemaker outside of all AT&T employees' homes. You get them to crack, call them again and again, trying to call me, telling them you can hijack America's lifelines, you can alter phone records again and again. America has your phone gate on video. And I guarantee you those lower level employees, you interrupt their drug binge or their party, they're angry, they're overworked, you call them again and again, they will tell you, other than hijacking America's lifelines and jeopardizing our security as a nation and its families, they will tell you exactly what Randall Stevenson's company is doing. Get it out of them.